interests me personally and intrigues me, mainly because he's a tech guy, but he's a tech guy at a different level. And I'm so good at tech. Every one of you knows. I'm so good at tech that I barely know how to use my iPhone. And Viktor, our CTO, is someone who I've met personally once in Dubai. And by the way, some of us haven't met yet, but we're meeting very soon, yeah, over the coming few weeks. And when I met Viktor, it was a very good opportunity to know him more, to know much more about Medius. We'll talk about Medius today, and his family, his father, his background. We will know about all of this today. What I promise you of is one thing: it will be different, and this block chat, this spotlight, will introduce you to someone who's really, really interesting. Not like everyone else we introduce you to isn't, but it's much more interesting than someone like me or Dennis, for example. Victor, how are you?
Not true, Makram. I'm very well, thank you for this introduction. Um, Likewise, it was really interesting to meet you in Dubai. It was more than a half a year ago, I guess, but time flies. And it's true, we're meeting in October, again, all in Ljubljana, so I'm really looking forward to this meeting. So I'm barely waiting for you to come to Slovenia and explore a bit.
Same here. Victor, I would like to start in a non-normal, non-usual place. So rather than you starting to tell us about yourself and Blocksquare and what have you done at Blocksquare to date, and you're a co-founder as well as the CTO, I would love to start, if you don't mind, you telling us the story of your family from when it started to date. Is that possible?
I don't know how much time do we have.
All the time in
No,
the world.
yeah, I'll be really brief. I don't know mm, where to begin actually, but I recently became a father, so I'm going from the events that just happened to all the way back, yeah, to my father and also grandfather, who both inspired me within the companies or within the work that I do. So I still at home have my grandfather's captain's uniform, and it sometimes you can see it in the background when I'm at home in the office, and everyone is asking, "Hey, are you on a boat or on a ship or are you a pilot?" But yeah, it's some kind of a souvenir and a reminder of my grandfather, late grandfather, who just a few years ago passed away, and we were like 30,
Right.
60, 90. Our ages between we were all 30 years difference, and now
Oh, wow.
I yeah, and now I actually was too late, and I'm in 35th, 6th year, and just recently became a father. So I'm the one who broke the
Broke
tradition
the
a
rule.
bit. Yeah, broke the rule. Yeah, but it's true. I, how I became a tech guy is actually because my father is one of the gurus in Unix and Java programming, and this is why I fell in love with it. But the interesting thing, and this is why I said that my grandfather was a captain, was because also my father wanted to follow his footsteps. So he also wanted to be working in this naval business, naval somehow this sea shipment and everything else. But um, and that's now 50 years ago, I guess. My grandfather was promoted to become from a captain to manage one of the companies or a branch of one Yugoslavian company back then in New York, in the USA. So, and my father was at that time just finishing high school. and he was looking for a university to enroll, and he went to the Columbia, New York University, and he asked, okay, what is the program that I can enroll and would involve um, naval education? And they were looking at him and said, sorry, we don't offer anything like that, but you could maybe try software development or programming, because now it's a really hot topic. And he was like, I don't know. And, and actually, before he realized, he first finished the university, got his master's degree in computer science, and actually became a software engineer. So, and this is how it all started. So back then they were already doing similar stuff that we are doing right now. Of course, the technology maybe changed a bit, and the tools that we use. But my father always says that it was much easier back then, and that it was all straightforward. But now we use so many different kind of assistance tools, platforms, but essentially doing the same thing at the end. And he's always saying, I would do this in a month with your guy, what the 10 of you is doing now for half a year. But at the end, yeah, it's a completely different environment. There are complex enterprise systems today that communicate between each other. There are no more monolithic applications. One thing does everything. But of course, there's now satellite services all around us, and especially with increased demand that also COVID introduced, where now enterprises need to really respond fast to these demands that users are posing to them. It's become a really complex infrastructure and ecosystems for us as a software developers, engineers, especially the architects. So yeah, it's all the way from being a captain to now leading this
And you mentioned
computer.
something here, cool, Victor. Your father was one of the gurus of JavaScript, yeah, and I believe,
Java, more Java, open source technologies, and Unix programming back then. So
and that's the
the
base of
Linux,
what we built on, yeah.
that's that's actually the base that everything is built on, the Linux operating system, which probably now is the in 80 or 90% of all enterprise software at the backbone. So, or the core systems are based on Linux. So yeah, and
It's
now
cool.
on top of it, of course, you have different programming languages, all the way to JavaScript at the front end level that performs its or executes in the web browsers or mobile devices that we use today.
Today, tell me more about Medias, because when I got introduced to you, I initially thought, you know what? Yeah, they're a good software development company and engineering, software engineering. But I discovered that you're not. You're much more than that, and in a much different way. So how did I discover that? One day I had a website that I wanted support with, and I called Dennis and I said, Dennis, I have this website I want support with. Shall I call Victor? He said, my man, no, don't call Victor. They don't work on websites as simple as that. What do you do as medias? Because I believe that you are behind many of the proprietary tech out there now, and many interesting stuff that we wouldn't know who's behind. What do you do exactly at Medias?
Yeah, it's true. It's a small, I would say, small team of engineers. We're around 35 experts working on proprietary solutions. And when I say proprietary, that means something that cannot be bought off the shelf. So we're usually working for a bit larger enterprises that want to differentiate from their, I would say, competitors, or if they're looking for something that is unavailable and they want to offer it as a service either to their customers or just between their applications. So it, we are in a way, of course, yeah. Denis maybe made a joke about it, but yeah, we are in a position to really choose what projects we work for. So at the end, of course, we are only as good as much as effort we put into it. And because I want to really offer to our engineers the best possible projects, I would say the most challenging ones. We are really careful of what we select as a project and which clients we work for. So I would say we are across industry experts in terms of that we work for different kind of branches or industries in, for example, telco, pharmacy, insurance, finance, also government, and etc. So public transport is a big branch that we also offer, and this gives us this, I would say, edge or some kind of extra knowledge because we are able to take best practices of each industry and try to apply them to this project. So yeah,
Most
lately,
interesting. I'm not sure if you can mention, but what's the most interesting project you've worked on over the past 5 years, let's say? If you
I
can't
don't know.
mention it, no problem.
Some I cannot mention because because of our contractual agreements, and I can usually mention them in an offline chat, and there everyone is just looking. But I would say that they include, for example, natural language processing to link different people, persons, understand some unstructured text within the documents, and you can maybe imagine who would be interested in such services. But lately, for example, we are working on a really, I would say, amazing software. And I was mentioning how those ecosystems today really grown. So, for example, one telco company may have 100 plus or 200 or even 300 systems, applications connecting or communicating in real time among each other. So what we try to do is create some kind of topology in real time of how these systems are interconnected. And not only that, we try to understand what are the events or what is actually the source event that then triggers all this communication between the systems so that we can actually know our system. So we, instead of KYC, we call it KYS, where now you really need to understand your system to actually um, predict either any failures, to maybe integrate new software into it, or just offer new services. But what is important is to know if one process, and I would say now, for example, one phone call will trigger X events on your backend systems, and how will this react, whether there will be any failures or not. And this we do this also with artificial intelligence, actually. So it's impossible to come with a piece of paper and go from application to application and say, okay,
Every
this
piece of
is,
code, yeah.
yeah, and check every piece of code, because before you will finish, the state will be completely different, because in the marketing department they decided to offer 3 new services or 5 new services, and the topology or architecture will be completely different. So we try to actually monitor and collect all these events that happen, and with machine learning algorithms, actually I would say, write or define the processes that are going on. And this helps you not to just understand the system, but also maybe behavior of one customer. So, for example, now we are a provider of two lottery systems, in national lottery systems. And for example, there is one interesting thing that we do with this software is we actually try to minimize the risk of a person being heavily, how do you call it, dependent on playing the games, lottery games. So we actually try to decrease how much uh, how
Addicted.
much he's addicted. Exactly. How much addicted he is by changing little parameters in the application that in real time that he doesn't notice, but maybe would mm, make him stop playing the game. If we of course target him as a player that might become addicted. So that's actually something that is reverse to what everyone think artificial intelligence is doing, just trying to sell more and more and recommend more and more products, but it's actually vice versa.
So
In this case,
there is a gambling company that is interested to reduce the player's time on site.
exactly, yeah, there is because because overall it's better for them, because if there will be one gambler who will lose everything, he will tell
Yep.
everyone about it. uh, People will start talking about it, and of course you don't want bad publicity, right? So it's better for them to play it just for fun
So the
but not
casino
lose
always
everything.
wins. It's the
Yeah,
casino always wins a little bit so that it always wins. Yeah.
exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
cool. Cool.
Yeah,
So let's go to Blocksquare. Today, one of the projects that you're most excited and enthusiastic about, thus you co-founded
very.
and you have put all the time behind. And we know that anyone who've been involved in any distributed ledger technology, blockchain, tokenization of real estate business over the past few years, um, had a so much enthusiasm about it. Otherwise, not only enthusiasm, belief in its future. Otherwise, wouldn't have continued because it was challenging times all through for any company that's doing tokenization of real estate, and specifically a company that is a tech enabler. Blocksquare is not trying to tokenize real estate directly, is enabling companies that are interested to tokenize real estate by enabling them with amazing tech and tech that's simple and that works. Simple is a wrong word when we come to this tech, especially after the description you've given it. So, what would you tell us about the tech behind Blocksquare? And you spend most of your days looking at it.
Well, as you said, Blocksquare is amazing. It's a project or a company that I'm really really proud of, and it's something that Denis and I, and of course the other members of the team, have put a lot of effort in, and it's not just something that we wanted to build um, but we really want to have that Blocksphere has some kind of purpose. So we really want to be an enabler or disruptor of this real estate uh, market, or whatever you can call it. It's that has always been, I would say, lagging behind in terms of technology, and it's something that, yeah, it's quite challenging, but this is why we are into it, because we love challenges. And yeah, mm, I think, comprise this Blocksquare platform from many different technological solutions, platforms, etc. And all because we believe this is the best setup we can offer. So we are not building something that we already knew and just trying to replicate it. We are really going from zero. We have been changing or pivoting our ideas a lot just to really provide something meaningful to the users. So, but it's a long process, and we've started with a marketplace, and of course the tokenization system with a set of smart contracts on Solidity that we first developed, that are actually still the basics, the core of the entire system. But on top of it, now we are really building a lot of functionality services. So I would say that it started as an idea of how we can use blockchain and connect it to some kind of real world assets. But now it became a white labeled marketplace, a really powerful white labeled marketplace where our partners can set up their own exchanges or marketplaces to distribute and exchange real digitalized version of real estate. But also it became, I would say, decentralized step on the other side, where we have this liquidity protocols that enable us to really to offer this kind of services to anyone in the world. And I think it's been an amazing journey, and there's a lot of different kind of tech that we use so far, and this is why I personally love it also, because we learned so much. But there's still a great journey ahead. We have a couple of really nice, I would say, projects or visions in our near pipeline. So yeah, Makram, we meet every week to discuss ideas that Denis is throwing on the table. So and of course you as well. So there will be a lot of effort and a lot of new things coming also in future, and I'm looking forward to it.
Hopefully, and definitely, not hopefully.
Yeah,
Victor, whenever somebody talks about Blocksquare, and whenever somebody asks, what's your edge, I always tell them our edge is not only tech. We have the legal framework, we have the business methodology, we have the process or thinking process behind the business as well as the tech that gives us an edge. And then comes tech. However, you mentioned two things within our discussion, at the beginning of our discussion. One of them is security, and second is complexity and systems talking to each other. So, when it comes to tech today, you've created an architecture which is not simple at all. It's pretty complex, and yet the front end, always what talks to people and what talks to the environment around you, should be pretty simple. Yeah, it should be very very understandable and very easy to grasp, and very easy to navigate within. When you look at the back end and the architecture of the software, you're always, when the more complex it is, the more risky it is when it comes to security breaches, especially when it deals with assets and money and such big amounts of money. Because when you're talking real estate, it's a $600 trillion industry. It's not a small asset class. So obviously the amounts involved will be huge the minute that it takes off, and thanks God it started taking off. So the first thing we want to tackle on a technical side is, how do you secure the architecture? How do you secure the tech behind it? And and then we'll go to the other very important point, which is, how do you bridge all of this technology in addition to the technology that's out there that's talking to our system? Because not only does our systems need to talk to each other, but also our systems need to talk to the outside world. Let's
yeah,
start with the security. What can you
yeah.
tell us about
Okay, I would say what is different and what gives us the edge over some other companies that are doing similar things is that we're actually not a real startup, right? So we've done many similar projects so far when it comes to high level of security. So we are not go fast and break things guys, right? So we try to put a lot of effort into analysis, the design phase, and try to really understand what we want to build and try to create the architecture that will be sustainable also when it comes to large amounts of either users or whatever. So the security part comes exactly at that same spot. So what we try to build is a system that is really layered in terms of how it communicates between each other, so that we can then isolate those layers and also secure them. But there is also, of course, interesting thing is that we try to also evaluate or offer other external partners to try to penetrate our system and of course find some vulnerabilities that would otherwise could be exploited. But then there is another third part that I think it's really important, and it's methodology of the development. So when I say what kind of product you offer, it's not only the service that we are now offering with Blocksquare, but it's also our knowledge and our methodology of how we develop things. And it's really standardized. It has automatic deployment processes, build processes, testing processes that happen every time we commit some code into our repository. So whenever someone does a change in the system, it also actually checks automatically whether this could break any functionality that actually we didn't even touch. But this gives us some kind of assurance and the confidence that we can deploy into production with less errors that we would normally do, and especially less, I would say, security vulnerabilities. So I think that these are key points to
You
create such
mentioned
a.
here we're not startup in tech, by the way, which is a very interesting thing. Probably all startups in tech, from Zoom to Uber, were startups in tech. So they were tech startups. While because of our background and our backing, yes, we're not startups in tech. So the modules that we work, the processes that we follow, are processes that are currently used by top quality class A enterprises globally. So it's not a startups experimenting ground. No, not really. It's framework and modules that startups usually cannot afford to build and develop. Am I right?
Exactly, and what you know how usually startups work. They decide for one functionality and they say, okay, we'll create a minimal viable product out of it, and it doesn't matter. We need to spend as less time as possible to build it. And then once and if they succeed, they throw everything away and start from the beginning, because the MVP that they created would not allow them to expand, right? But we were a bit different. We wanted to take it step by step and really create something that will work on the long run, because Dennis and I, and also Peter and you, for example, we knew that it would be difficult uh, to offer such a novel and interesting and technology, future technology service in real estate, and that it will catch up in a month, right? So we knew that we will need a bit longer run to work on, and this is why we decided to really do the things properly. And now it's easier to actually add new functionalities, to add new members to the team, and also to actually scale the product and everything. So
So today we have a scalable, secure product. Let's look at the way our tech talks to other tech and the challenge you have in that. Because every day, I always I'm mesmerized when I see real top quality software engineers, because if we are in medicine or we are in sales or we are in real estate, things change slowly, and yet it's very difficult to keep up with the changes and what's happening. If you're a software engineer, things are changing at a speed and acceleration that you can't imagine. So companies can't catch up. How can individuals catch up? So when you talk about building architecture like Blocksquares, where your architecture and tech should talk to all tech that is available out there, where's the challenge, the biggest challenge, and how do you feel we have an edge at Blocksquare within that?
Well, it is really challenging because, of course, as I said, now even internally, applications now communicate with each other, but of course, now you connect to other external services, applications that either you need and provide you some kind of data, some kind of insights, or vice versa, right? So some external services applications can connect to you, gather some information, or even actually have their own user interfaces um, installed in their own existing software, but just communicate with our backend software, backend systems. So I think that the key is to really have use standards as much as possible where they are, so that and to of course document what you offer and vice versa. So in terms of that, we try to follow the best examples or best programming practices, and not to actually fall on every silver bullet new technology that solves everything, but try to really evaluate it, wait for it to become a bit more
Stable
not
and solid.
mainstream, but exactly as stable, because there are many dead ends that can happen, and really need to be careful of where we are navigating. But yeah, as you mentioned, we use a lot of also external services that we rely on, such as, for example, right now we've been using the Zero Exchange protocol for our marketplace, and we need to migrate to a higher version because it's deprecated for Kovan test network, and we are now, of course, moving or migrating to Gurley. And then there are maybe some other services that we use, such as subgraphs, where we index our blockchain activity, so we don't have to keep everything or all actions on our end, but really just use GraphQL to query their database, their index database. So there are a lot of external, of course, services that we use, but we try to be quite, I would say, pragmatic and careful of not to over-engineer the system. But our, at the end, of course, idea is always to create a really decentralized system where everything would be at the end fully automated and also autonomous, hopefully one day. But of course, we're not there yet.
I'm taking you there now. I'm taking
Yeah.
So look, we've talked about the history of your family, but you're a father and you have a new family that you've started recently or some time ago, and I'm sure this changed many things in your life. What's the main thing that it changed in Victor?
Yeah, well, it's changed that I have less time for my free time activities. But yeah, of course, there's a lot of even more love in our family than before. So that's the biggest thing that changed. But in terms of how much I've been working, I'm now running away from home to be in the office even more. To but
I
yeah,
watched a movie yesterday. It's called I forgot the name, but it talks about me time. And I
yeah,
advise anyone who will watch it will stop wanting me time for the considerable future. So,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
do you see your son in the coming few years using or purchasing property that is tokenized mainstream in Dubai, for example, or in New York? Do you see that that will be the thing of tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it will be a lot different to what we're doing now in 10 or 15 or even more years. Uh, I can't actually even imagine what the world will look like, but I think that things will be even more digitalized, that everything will be a millisecond away from us, and it's a bit scary on one side, but actually looking at it now, it's giving us way more advantages than disadvantages. So yeah, it's
And
it's
do you see that DAOs will be the thing of the future, or do you see that
one
uh,
of the things, definitely. Yeah, one of the things. I think yes. There will of course always be uh, trustworthy either companies or organizations that we will have, but DAOs will be one thing of the future for sure, because we need to have a good balance in life, either in tech or in personal life or also in business. Uh, one cannot succeed without the other. So I
you said
think
I
that
can't
yes.
you said I can't imagine the future. Mr. Musk said recently that the biggest threat to the future of humanity would be tech. Now, for someone who doesn't understand tech like me, I would say, what would you say? For someone who does understand it.
Yeah, Elon Musk, he's a genius, I guess. But I wouldn't go for any word that he says. Of course, a lot of it is marketing, but he's quite true on this sentence. We've been working a lot with artificial intelligence. We've been developing prediction systems for enterprise solutions so that we can predict something before it happens. And yeah, everything is going in that way that
So
someday
is it scary or
robots.
fascinating, or is it scary and fascinating?
It's scary and fascinating at the same time, but I think that at the end we are still in control of what is being done, and it will be quite difficult to have robots um, creating an army and erasing us from the earth. But at the end, the tech that we use can be now the problem, especially now because
The failure, you
most.
mean?
Yes, look, there are now so many thousands and thousands of engineers just trying to actually solve or create algorithms of how to sell more products to you, how to actually recommend something that you really want to see, etc. Instead of really focusing on the issues of the world that are more important, right? And this is unfortunately a shame because we would probably save world hunger if thousands of Facebook, Googles, and Tesla's engineers would try to solve this, but they don't have the incentive for it. And this is why I think Musk is right in a way, because at the end, there uh, we are just creating the software or the tools or the products that customers really are looking for, but not something that might be good for long run. Or so I am still optimistic, but it's something in my back of my mind that it scares me a bit.
If you want to look at the future and you look at the fascinating side as well as the scary side, you mentioned AI several times, and you believe that AI is the probably the biggest source of fascination and fear at the same time. Yet, what do you believe is the biggest game changer when it comes to tech? And that's not for people like me to understand. That's for if we have tech geeks listening to us today. Is there a piece of tech that is evolving that will be a game changer and change everything we know and how we interact with systems?
Well, there are two pieces, right, of the equation, or two pieces that I think will change the technology and that are already changing technology today. And one is of course blockchain, but as a technology. So not only the services that are now coming, but I would say more from a technology perspective that allows us to really create decentralized systems or services that are not controlled by one company or one entity. And for example, Bitcoin being really proof of concept and a really good example, but currently being one of the few really good examples, and it's actually using just as a term of or as a service of speculation, more or less. But I think that because of blockchain and all these services that are coming, or this technology offers us really a good platform to one day have services that will be completely autonomous and will run by itself and will be in control by the end users. And this is something that not for all services, of course, is useful, but for some is. And I think this is one changer. And the other one is, of course, something that we mentioned already, and it's artificial intelligence and how. And actually, artificial intelligence is not something new, or the term itself has been used for 30, even more, 50 years already. But where we are today,
Is
it's
machine
really,
learning at the core of that?
it's machine learning, it's deep learning that is in the core of that. But why we're talking about it so much today is because today computers or the technology enabled us to really have a lot of data that machine learning and deep learning can work on. And not just that, we have so much advancement also in the hardware um, infrastructure that we can really process this data effectively. So the algorithms and the essence staying the same for so many years, but today or now in last 10 days, 10 years, we've seen this really exponential growth of what AI can do. And then who knows what will happen after? Maybe some kind of how do you call it, quantum computing or something like that, that's already coming. But of course we need to wait a couple of more years to that. But the autonomous driving, autonomous flying, or something where we already see drones doing or robots doing things without human intervention or things automatically. It's all part of this revolution of AI.
If you want to be asked a question today that I haven't asked you, what would it be? So what would be the question that you wanted to answer but wasn't asked to you today?
I think we covered a lot, but
Covered everything.
I was sure that you will ask me about my relationship with Denis and the founding team of Blocksquare.
I didn't. So go ahead, please.
No, but it's a
I
funny
know it's a
story, and
bad
I don't
one,
know.
so that's why I didn't need to.
Yeah, I don't know if it's already public, and but Dennis and I know each other since we're probably 6 years old, and we skied together, and this is how we know each other. We've been living in the same city, and somehow this technology connected us both, and now we have this, I think, successful company that we're running, and I really appreciate all his efforts, and he's really put a lot of thinking and ideas into what we try to offer. And I think Blocksquare wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for Denis and his vision. So I wanted to thank him on that, and I think that it still is a really nice friendship, but it involved into also something more. And I think that we will try to, or will somehow grow even more together. And I think that this is really important. So not just what we are building, but how we communicate between each other, how we work together. It's important, and I think that we trust each other. And I think Denis is doing a really good job with leading this company.
I always say it's very difficult to lead a company like a Blocksquare for multiple reasons. One of them is when you are not attached to hype and you're trying to build something, most of what you try to work on, people can't see. So people see that you don't have news every day sometimes. And while everyone else in the market has news every day, now maybe it's hype, maybe it's not, whatever it is, but how would you create a news every day? If you're working on technology that takes days and weeks and months to reach a point where it changes something on the front end that's seen by people, and you try to create a piece of news every day, and that's why many of the companies are into NFTs and into everything that bubbled over the past few years. If you're not,
Yeah,
it's very difficult. It's very difficult internally, it's very difficult externally. Why? You create a team meeting. How would you excite your team? By telling them, okay, so we're working on the same thing that we were working on last week. It's very difficult. Two, it's externally, you want to communicate with the world. But there is one major difficulty, which is above all, it's difficult internally between you and yourself. When you sit in the evening and you say, okay, I want to be notorious, I should be on top of the world because I'm creating and working with technology and trying to impact the biggest industry in the world, the biggest asset class in the world, and I really am working on fundamentals. I'm not working on hype. I have tech. I haven't launched a company that is now worth $1 billion, where I have barely a landing page. No, I really have fundamental tech. So between you and yourself, there is a challenge. There is that kind of ongoing challenge, that fight that is there. So for you to be able to live all of that positively, you need to have that level of belief and understanding to um, to where are you going, to the direction you're going. And in such a market and in such a cyclical side of the business you're at, it's very difficult to maintain that at a decent level. So what I would say to add to Victor's is, although we don't like to say nice things about Dennis, we don't like to. However, what I'd like to add to Victor's is the following. Dennis is not a real estate guy. His background is architecture, and he's a businessman. He's a smart businessman. He understands tech to a level that allows him to run a tech company, but he's not also a top level developer on a on a global level with an edge on that. Yet the understanding he creates, and some people are blessed with that skill and that talent, he's able to create about all of those subjects, is at a level where in tech he can talk to Victor Tech, on real estate he can talk to me or to other members of the team who are more in depth into risk management and into asset management. in their business. When he talks about community management and facility management, and those subjects are not understood even or understandable to everyone in real estate. So how about if someone isn't in it? So I would say hats off 100%. It's not an easy challenge at all, and I agree with Victor. So I second you here.
Yeah.
That it's a very difficult thing, and probably he's the right person. Otherwise, where it wouldn't have lasted, sustained, and grown, and hopefully growing much faster and much bigger every day we talk. So you caught a
It's
question
true.
that I haven't asked you, that you would want. Would you have wanted me to ask you? I want two things from you here, please. I want first a word to your son, that because in 20 years you would want to introduce him to Uncle Makram and tell him, look, this guy, we did this spotlight some time ago. So a word to your son in few years over here, and then after that, please, the word that you want to tell our community and anyone listening to us today, and then we'll say goodbye. So it's
So
yours.
first, the words to my son. Hey, Nicholas, if you're watching this, see, your dad is quite cool, huh? No, but words to the community. I would just thank them all for really being a big support, especially to some people that are there from the start. We all know how much effort it was put into it, and we're really, I would say, mm, we really respect how you've been able to still follow us and be on our path and support us with all the things that we've been building so far. And I'm very positive that we are going into the right direction, and looking forward also to some bigger conference or event that we will organize. Then we will maybe all meet in person. But um, at the end, just thank you to everyone.
Peter, thank you. Dennis, thank you. Julia, thank you. Daniel, every member of our team all over the world, thank you. And a big thank you to the genuine, honest, direct Victor. I'll tell you something about Victor before I close. So, Victor is a tech guy, and you don't expect from a tech guy to be somebody who's so good at probably communication, so good at when it comes to business formalities. Usually, a tech guy is someone who knows tech and sometimes understands business. Yeah. However, few months ago, we were tackling a big opportunity, a big client. And after the first and second meeting with the client, we had a meeting, Dennis, Victor, and myself, and we were chatting about what's the next step. And Victor said something at that time, which taught me much. I thought about it deeply. I'm not sure if he knows now which piece of sentence that he said at that time. So hats off, Victor, because you're someone who's very composed. Um, as you see, guys, very genuine and very direct and very simple in his approach to things, within the complexity and tech knowledge and futuristic understanding and view. Thank you so much for being with me at a spotlight today in
Thank you,
a
Makram,
block chat
for inviting.
brief.
Thank you for inviting me. It was actually not that bad. I was a bit afraid of it, but
Guys, and I got it. It's not that bad. So, thank you all for being part of our community. For whoever is part of our community, for whoever is not, guys, if you want to tokenize real estate, today is the day, and now is the time. The time is not after everyone in the world have tokenized real estate. We're starting a revolution that is amazing, fascinating, and most probably will impact all of us and our lives tomorrow morning. So be part of that revolution. Don't wait and watch. Thank you. for joining us on the Block Chat today. I'm Makram Hani, was with Victor, the CTO of Blocksquare, and does much more